All right, we're live.
Dun,
Okay,
dun,
okay,
dun.
okay, okay. Everybody, welcome back. Verano
Yeah,
1711 is on,
yeah.
Matias.
TikTok.
You were about to say
How,
something.
what? When was TikTok time to wrong or was that whatever?
Yeah, Matthias is still waking up, so everybody give
Yeah.
him a break.
Poor Matthias. I mean, he's doing a great effort because Matthias, allow me to say this. Zach, he is a big fan of your channel, your content. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why. That's
I'll
why.
send you an autograph.
Thanks.
Hey, just so you know, so for people who's gonna be watching this video, this interview, this is a special episode because among us is found Zach Miller from What Your Pastor Didn't Tell You. Zach, how you're doing
Woot,
today?
woot, woot, woot. Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
We're doing just great, great. Really looking forward to this. Matias, how's Russia
Mm-hmm.
training you, putting and everything? How's everything going there?
I changed place, so that's why the background is different. This is not digital.
Yes,
Got some cool
yes.
books, so now you look like you know what you're talking about.
Yep, that's the idea.
I got no books on
Yeah,
on my back here. It's just a wall.
Mhm.
No
you're
philosophical
a big
something there.
failure.
A big failure. Ah. Hey, so this isn't a long time making here. I had this discussion with Sag. There should be a moment where we can bring Sag up on the stage here and have a conversation among people who are he's doing his thing in his channel. What your pastor didn't tell you. By the way, that's a catchy title to put on
You think
a.
so?
I think so. I honestly think that. Yeah.
It's
I mean,
difficult to say in, by the letters. For example, you have inspired philosophy. You see IP. Why your pastor didn't tell you what your
WYPTY.
Whippity,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
whippity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, Zach, he's got something there. I think it's a play. I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure your wife gave it to you as a present. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, you remember that? Good job.
Yeah.
I don't remember telling you that. That's all.
It's because I've been watching you.
I
Oh,
can't get
sorry.
it. I can't pull it
Yeah.
up. It's just not. It's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no worries. People knows what I'm talking about. If they have been following your channel, they
Yeah.
know.
If they
So
don't,
people,
then they should.
they should. Yeah, and that's one of the purposes of this stream. So, we just want to have a conversation. We just want to talk about a variety of topics, which I personally am pretty sure you as well, Sag and Matthias. We have something to say. Those are very important topics, if you ask me. And we're not pretending at all to be, scholars or experts, as Zach was saying, off camera. But at least we've been doing at least our homework and reading here and there, and that's pretty much the lay of the land that we want to establish here in this conversation. We're gonna shoot Zach with questions. We're just gonna pop with questions and questions and questions. But he's willing to say, I don't know when it's that's the appropriate time, and for if there's a topic he has something to say, he will do it.
That's right.
So that's what we want to do. And we just want to say thank you to Zach, right, Matthias, for accepting
Mm-hmm.
our invitation and being here. And I think this is gonna be fun. Matthias, I don't know if you have to say anything there, any comments before we can go. This is the time. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, thanks, Zach, for accepting the invitation. And because, in a way, in fact, we have been inspired by your work, and how have you have put a lot of effort into bring to the average viewer
Mhm.
high, scholarship and interviewing scholars and presenting topics. That has been very inspiring because it shows that you don't need to have a big title or big
Mm,
organization to attract people, which is
yeah,
something that the average person should know. But
yeah.
because so
Well,
everybody
you
thanks
guys
for
are kind
that.
of doing the same thing I'm doing, just
Hmm.
a little bit different topics. Some of the topics I've been like, oh shoot, I need to do that. I need to talk to
Hmm.
them, and then other times I'm like, well, shoot, they already did it, so I don't need to now.
Hmm.
But But no, you guys are doing a good job over there. A lot of prestigious scholars that you've interviewed.
Also in español for us.
That's true. Yeah, I can't do
Now,
that. That's for sure.
No, but here's the challenge. You're gonna have to say Espanol after we go with the intro. Okay? So
Okay.
let's do it.
Well,
All right. So before Zach hits the challenge, the title it's a pun, if you ask me, because you guys in North America you said Berean, but we as Spanish people we say Bereano. So Zach, how would you say Espanol? Spanish
Uh,
in Español.
oh, what your
You
pastor
say
didn't tell you in Spanish?
Oh yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah. Lo
It
que
would
tu
probably be something
pastor-
like what your pastor didn't tell you in Espanol.
En español. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Simple,
Yeah.
concrete. Actually, the thumbnail of this episode it's in Spanish. The other subtitle is in English. Zach Miller is gonna tell us what your pastor did, and it's a good pun. Hebrews. People in the ancient world they love puns. I mean,
Is that right?
yeah. And that's a good pun. So now, Zach, I need to ask you
Okay.
just to get into things here. Let's go back in Genesis to the beginning of time. How it all
Yes.
begin with your channel, your experience. What happened there? I mean, what prompted you to do this kind of stuff? Tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I grew up as a probably a young Earth creationist. That was probably the only apologetics I knew. Good old Kim Ham.
Mhm.
And you guys didn't expect him to join the stream, did you? But
Okay. You got me on that.
then I kind of moved to Hugh Ross, and Hugh Ross was interesting. I didn't immediately accept what he had to say, and I didn't completely reject young Earth creationism or anything like that either. But that was kind of like the most thing that I had to do with apologetics really ever. I grew up as a very evangelical kid, super strict views of inerrancy, and I'm trying to think. I wasn't Calvinist. I wasn't. I don't think I. Okay, I did. I definitely believed in the whole Left Behind stuff. That's for sure. But then the whole channel started because I got introduced to someone everybody loves, Michael Heiser, and I started listening to all these podcasts. Of course, he's got like a ton of them, and I was like, man, like all this stuff isn't really on YouTube. Nobody's talking about this. I need to get this to people, and I had a job that allowed me to not have to do a lot of work, which is great. So I listened to podcasts, and then I got home and I said, I got to write this paper, make this video. I should just let people know about this. And then I was like, man, this took forever to do this all by myself. So I started interviewing scholars, and that's where we get there today, where it's a lot easier to interview scholars. You just ask questions like you guys are doing instead of actually know what you're talking about. Which is funny because like half the conversations I have, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I just thought of the question like 30 minutes before.
Same experience here. Yeah, I can attest to that. Matias, I mean, Zach's in this case with coming across Heiser's content, I think it's pretty much the same with me. I don't know about you. Yeah.
In my case was with respect to Heiser was because I watched the Ancient Aliens Debunk documentary. That's the one that debunked the first season of Ancient Alien. There was a scholar that appeared in the middle of the documentary all the time. The answer And Michael Heiser, oh, who is this guy? So then I went to his website.
Ah, okay.
Who's that?
Mhm.
That's ironic. That's pretty funny. Yeah, another big guy for me was good old John Walton.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, people like Michael Jones and Evan Minton, who doesn't do a lot of YouTube anymore.
Mhm.
They reference John Walton's work a lot because that was kind of related to the whole Genesis thing. So once I got
Oh
into
yeah.
the whole John Walton stuff, like you really that opens up a ton of stuff. Same with Michael Heiser of
Mhm.
understanding the ancient Near East and why it's
Oh yeah.
important to understand the context of biblical passages. So yeah, that really opened up things and got me to where I would do today, where I interview biblical scholars. So if you're watching this and you like Matthias and Marv's channel, then you'll
Mhm.
like mine because I just interviewed a bunch of scholars like you guys do.
Yeah, we're twins.
Mhm.
No, I was just going to say about John Walton. His book on, I think it was what book was that? I think it's Genesis 1 as
Lost
The
ancient
World
Lost
of
Custodian.
Genesis
World
1.
of Genesis
It's the
1.
blue one. Yeah, the blue one cover, published by
No,
Isaac Roberts.
the Lost World is green.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the blue one. Yeah, it's a
I don't know
beautiful
which one.
cover. That book was endorsed. Just to put in perspective here, that book was endorsed by two big names. I mean, and they're not exactly like evangelical Christians per se. That book was endorsed by Karel van der Toorn, Dutch scholar, and Jack Sasson.
Huh.
And
Okay.
I said that to him, and he was like, oh yeah, thank you, Mark, thank you. but that's the point. Just as Zach is saying here, I mean, it's not only Heiser, it's also Walton, Tremper Loman, another big
Mhm.
name there. But that's the point. Something trigger, I don't know about you, Zach, but something within us, prompted us to do something. I mean, because I remember myself, my experience very quick. I was reading something, a footnote somewhere, some book, I don't quite remember. And to some point, I just had to stop and ask myself, what am I doing? I'm just, dumping theory into my head and everything. And then what? What's
Hmm.
next? So I don't know what happened to you, Zach. Beside that, you just said, okay, let's make this content available for a wider audience, and then boom, you got your channel and the title and everything. Do you think there has been some challenges so far? I mean, we got our strengths and weaknesses, but what would you say about that?
Challenges?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, one of the big ones that I've been thinking about recently is having people that actually know what they're talking about. There's a lot of
Okay.
scholars out there, especially in the theological world, that don't really like they're kind of maybe more motivated by like their own views that they already have, and it's the same thing in like biblical scholarship as well. With like some critical scholars, they're very biased against Christianity. Some of them, most of them, I don't. That from my experience, not. But um, the what's difficult is like you don't want to platform somebody that's just going to talk a bunch of nonsense, and then people watch, and then they're like, "Oh, well, this is legitimate because this guy's on a channel or this guy has a PhD," and
Mhm.
so like I've been thinking about that a lot because of the book that I'm writing. I guess I can throw it up. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm writing a book.
I saw a picture. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Thank you.
Testing Features: The Hidden Psychology of Christian Authority. But talking about like what makes somebody trustworthy, and talking about the psychology behind that. So that's what I've been thinking about a lot. Um, the other thing is, of course, time, because like I have a full time job, so like this is just
Yeah.
fun. And you know what? I expected to get like 10,000 subscribers and have a bunch of Patreon supporters. And, I didn't expect to be rich or anything. But
No,
YouTube doesn't really pay you anything.
No, not anymore, at least.
not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that they've definitely changed how they do that. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that
But
yeah.
sorry, I just want to say this very quick. Matthias, that book up there that Zach just showed us, that deserves an entire episode, if you
Yep.
ask me.
Yeah, yes, because it's very important, especially in Latin American contexts, where
Mm.
in
Oh yeah.
in lower classes, lower classes in Latin America, um,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the
Say it. Say it.
evangelical movement, especially the Pentecostal movement, has been very, very positive because they have it's going to be so ironic, but the legalism
Hmm.
of evangelical Pentecostalism is very good
Pentecostalism. Yeah.
in Latin America because they prohibit, alcoholism because they don't drink
Yeah.
and they don't smoke. And that is actually very good because the vices that keep people poor in Latin America, people who became Pentecostal evangelicals, they
Yeah.
reject those vices, and then they have extra money, and then they send their kids to college. So it's a wealth transfer and a social elevator, basically.
Huh.
Thing is,
Oh.
it's a very good. That mean that an evangelical teacher in the lower classes in Latin America has a lot of authority because he or she is usually the most educated person in the town, in the place.
Hmm.
Huh.
So that gives that person a lot of authority, and that means a lot of responsibility. So
Yeah.
that's in that context is very important. But um, yeah, but I wanted to mention that it's actually a very positive thing, but there is a great risk
Hmm.
because of that added responsibility.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's really
Imagine
interesting.
the no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Imagine just the North American context, huh? And so I think I mean I haven't I don't have I haven't read anything exact to distrust me, but I'm pretty much you're gonna be drilling in your book about that context because that's where you grew up. I mean, but there's a lot of stuff in terms you talk about Calvinism and this stuff. I personally, truth to be told, I have zero knowledge about Calvinism,
Really?
Reformation.
Okay. Interesting.
No, I mean, in all truthfulness, okay, I'm putting my cards on the table. I'm when it comes to to talk about those topic, I just shut up, just let the people speak about that.
Yeah, that's fun because that's kind of like the first conversation people have when they get into theology, Arminianism and
Oh,
Calvinism.
yeah. I'm like, what are they talking about? But I understand it's important from a historical perspective. Now, I just want to move on the conversation here, and just checking some here our guidelines and the topics that we want to address. I have here inspiration, inerrancy, as the first topic. So, Zach, what can you say about those two topics, inspiration and inerrancy?
Yeah.
What's the step here?
And before we get into that, I just wanted to be clear. So I'm not an expert in any of these topics. I don't have a PhD. I don't really have much formal education at all in any of these topics. I've interviewed a lot of different scholars, and I have a lot of ideas in
Yeah.
my head. But it doesn't mean I'm an expert. So don't blindly trust me or something. But at the same time, also you guys feel free to say, "Hey, Zach, you're wrong. I think you're wrong about this." And
No,
it's
no.
okay to prove me wrong. But anyways, inspiration and inerrancy. Yeah, that's an
No.
interesting one because there's really not a lot of good books out there on inspiration and inerrancy. Like now it's 2026, there's a lot more than there was like 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
But even then, like there isn't a lot. So I'm a big fan of John Walton's ideas on inspiration of like the text is inspired in what it's teaching. So not every
Mhm.
little single thing that the writers are thinking about as they're writing, whether that be ancient cosmology, as you see right up there,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or I'm even open to the idea of ethics. John Walton's son talked about
Oh yeah.
how he argues that the biblical text should not be something that we should concern, like it's not teaching an ethics, which is really interesting and maybe a lot of Christians might not like. But like for example, so you have the idea of like punishment, corporal punishment in the Old Testament,
Mm.
uh, what is it? His name Philip. I can't remember his name. He argues that William Webb. He argues that the punishment for people think spanking had to do with like an actual rod, and there was like legit like abuse going on in ancient Israel, and that kind of makes sense. Like they didn't have you shouldn't spank your children. Like that's very 21st century thinking there. So yeah, the point being is that I could definitely see that as a really interesting view, but I'm the type of person that if I can't say something with if I don't have like a really, really strong argument for something, I'm not going to say that with 100% certainty. I'm very open to multiple ideas, and I'm not going to a lot of times what we'll do is we'll say, hey, this view of the Bible is I can think of this reason to doubt it. It doesn't disprove it, but it's an objection that seems like it means that it's not 100% certain, and therefore we'll just completely discount it. Say it's 15% a chance of being true. We'll just completely discount it as if it's not possible, and then we'll just base all of our arguments off that. But if there is a 15% chance that you're wrong and that affects all of your arguments, that means every single argument going forward is going to be 15% less possible. The point being is that I'm open to a lot of different things on inspiration and inerrancy. And we probably could talk about that for an entire video.
Yeah, that's one thing that it's important what a biblical writer is saying and what God is saying in the text, because it's different. It's one example I like a lot is when David, I think it's David in one of the Psalms. I don't know if one of the Psalms of David or attributed to David or whatever. Yeah. And it says, I have never seen a righteous man abandon or his descendants to ask for bread or something like that. And then you go to Ecclesiastes, and then sometimes that happens. So is David the one or attributed to David or in honor of David that's saying that he has never seen that? It doesn't mean that's not happened, but he doesn't have in his mental picture that could happen, or he has never observed that. So it's and that means it's not a contradiction. Or when Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian king, said, God puts kings and removes kings, and nobody can oppose him in what he chooses when it comes to rulers. And then God said to one of the prophets, I never choose those guys. I never did.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was just gonna say, that's very fair. I think because so many of evangelicalism in general has so many assumptions. One of those assumptions is that the Bible, just because it's kind of it's not written to us or for us. I can't even remember what the phrase is, but just because it's the Bible, it doesn't mean that everything that it says is going to actually apply to us or be something that we should follow. Or so what you're saying is hey, just because David says this doesn't mean that it applies to absolutely everybody or in every single circumstance.
I was just going to say that it's something that it's not original to me, but two guys have spoken about this topic. Heiser, of course, and Pete Enns. There's a book from Pete Enns. I mean, you had Pete Enns on your channel, Zach. I think it was 1 year ago. I mean, he'd been a couple of times in your channel.
There was one time it was on Romans and Genesis. Yeah, that was interesting because he's a really big name, but
I know
it took forever to get him on. I don't know if he just didn't respond to my emails or what.
That happens. No worries. That happens. I mean, I shared that experience, but I was going to say that he had this book come out. You remember the book? I think it's Inspiration and Incarnation.
Inspiration and Incarnation. Yeah.
Right.
That
was one of them. Yeah.
That's one of them. Yeah. But here's the point. Why I'm pointing this out. And the general narrative out there is that he was fired from Westminster, but he said no. I wasn't fired. I resigned. That's his own words on his podcast, The Bible for Normal People. And the thing is that the way these two guys talk about inspiration here, and they say, pretty much that they have issues in the way inspiration and inerrancy is, articulated by, evangelicals, people, Christians in general. It's just there are issues there, it was assumed, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was assumed sometime, many perhaps many centuries ago, that it was something like dictation,
Right.
No, that's not okay. So I'm pretty much on that position. And if you go back a little bit in that, that field of ancient Near Eastern stuff, you got people, scholars arguing, okay, for example, this guy Karel van der Toorn, he said that, the other civilizations, they were also claiming inspiration on their literature. So how would you respond to that? How would you play with that? I mean, that's my issue, my personal issue. It's not a big issue, but it's something that I'm constantly struggling with. I don't know about you, Matias. Maybe you're different, but
No,
that's where I'm at.
no, I don't struggle with that. I'm actually find the biblical story so ridiculously interconnected. Like
Mhm.
it's so fascinating how you never actually get to the bottom of
Okay.
what the text could say, because you find, oh, it's interesting, this text actually is reflected in this other text, and I haven't noticed this relation in the how the sacrifice in the Torah is reflected in prophecy and then it's alluded in the New Testament. So it's I have when I start like doing my little uh, thesis project, I realized I
Yeah.
could never get to the bottom to the topics, and then the whole narrative is so fascinating when you and I got to the conclusion that every time I think I understand the biblical story, I know I'm wrong because I know that I'm going to learn something in the future. So I'm going to say, no, you have not reached the end of this. And it's so fascinating that it's not an argument like intelligent design, that it's not an argument for that proves inspiration, but it
Mhm.
actually makes it suggests it's suggested. It's not a proof, but say if this is inspired by God, it makes sense that it will be like that.
Mm.
So that's why I don't really struggle with that. It's like, oh, this is like, you
Mm.
know yeah.
Zach, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. 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 That's a tough one because, on one hand, it wouldn't make sense that uh, there would almost be like some type of message, but
Mhm.
then a lot of times we kind of assume that there is and there's not.
Hmm.
So like if you want to go that route, then you want to make sure that you're not just doing it off of like baseless speculation, or
Mhm. Yeah.
not only that, but you're like a lot of times like um uh the uh like Liberty University and Answers in Genesis, they're very big on like there's the creation and then there's like the fall and then there's like six
Yeah.
stages or something like that, that like the biblical text is somehow broken up like that. um but but then like it doesn't necessarily work that way. Like there's like from the actual text, it just like they kind of like they're basically just like picking and choosing. Like, so creation, okay, what about the creation text in the middle in the Psalms?
Hmm.
Or what about how the like the fall, like is that even a fall? And
Fall.
not only that, but um why is Adam never mentioned in the Old Testament? That uh it's like these concepts aren't exactly where you would expect them if that is were the case. In other words, we
Mhm.
kind of like want to get our like own little methodologies, and like, but that's also based on prior theology of like sin and that concept. So it's like but those people also, kind of assume those are true too. So one, you have to actually give it like evidence for if you want to make one of those arguments, and then two is the other thing is that you have to realize that like there's none of those like are like certain, like for sure. So like, there has to be some humility there. Not that I'm saying you're not humble, but I'm saying that like you got to be extra careful. And then the other thing is that a lot of times like those arguments are based off of prior arguments, and those prior arguments aren't very good by itself. So it's like the entire thing, like what are we really doing here if we have multiple different arguments without good evidence for it?
There's I want to share something here with you. I don't know if I'm unable, but I think I think it should work, but not sure. Anyways, I was just going to say that there's this book, Dan McClellan. He's
The Bible for
perhaps
normal people?
no,
that's Expedience.
yeah, that's Peter. Though they are
What you doing?
friends, so
Yeah, I guess
they're
so.
friends. And then he usually brings up this book from John Poirier, I think it
Yeah,
is. Sorry if
right.
I'm butchering his name.
Yeah.
The Invention of the Inspired Text,
Right.
and I contacted Dr. Poirier, and he told me that he's willing to come on
Oh,
to
shoot.
the show. Yeah,
Sick.
maybe we can do a collaboration. I don't know, but just so you know. And basically he's arguing about that it's a translation issue.
Yeah.
Not only translation issue, but he argues that the way he's translated this word theopenousos, I think it is there is a point in history where that translation you can trace back, where the translation starts to be prominent in the literature produced by church fathers, but it's something that you don't find, according to his view, in first century, within Second Temple Judaism, that kind of stuff. So he's saying that this is an anachronistic translation, modern translation of the Bible. If that is true, okay, okay, don't take my word for it, but if that is true, that changed the picture a lot.
Yeah.
At least from what I can understand.
Right.
And I don't know what you think about that. That's it's, if you want to have that book, I can leave the link there. It's pricey because it's published by T.N.T. Clark, I think it is, but it's a good book. And the other day on Facebook, sometimes you run into those heated discussions in those Facebook groups. And there's this Facebook group, sending a commercial here for them. Nerdy languages, I think it is something like that. I don't quite remember.
Nerdy biblical languages majors.
Thank you, Zach. That's the one. And that book was brought up into that discussion, and it was a long chain of comments.
Oh shoot, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But again, it's a book that because another scholar, if I'm not mistaken, reviewed it and did a series of on his blog, and I think Dr. Poirier responded to it.
Oh wow.
It was a professional, respectful back and forth, which something that I really appreciate, because most of the times you get some Kevin Hobbins kind of stuff. And I don't like that. But that's the book. I don't know if there's something else there, but it's something that, if that is true, again, oh gosh, we need to reconfigure or rethink what we think of inspiration and everything.
Right. And for clarity for the audience, so Poirier argues that Theopneustos, or however you want to pronounce that, does not mean God breathed in 2 Timothy 3:16, where it says all scripture is God breathed. It's or all scripture is like inspired, but rather it should be interpreted as life giving, and that's just completely different understanding. The difference between thinking that like something like Genesis is God breathed, that like somehow God is breathing into the lips of the writer, and that's how we get to biblical text, or that scripture is just life giving. that like it's gonna produce good things, the life, then that's a very, very big difference, and that completely changes how we understand interpretation, inspiration, inerrancy, all that.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, let's move on here. I think we're pretty good and pretty good here. Something else. I don't know if you want to add something, Matthias, to that topic, or if we should move on. You let me know.
No, it's not.
I mean, you like to synthesize things, which I love from you. Okay, so
yeah. Okay. Next.
the following topic is the Trinity. Oh my goodness, the Trinity. I have a lot of things to say about that, but it's not about me. It's about Zach. Zach, what do you think about the Trinity? Are you in or are you?
Am I in or am I out? That's funny. So that's a really tough one because, like, what does the Trinity even mean? So Daniel McClellan, as you mentioned before, he does a video and he's like, oh yeah, this just proves the Trinity and math problem and whatever.
Right.
And then I can't remember the Orthodox scholar's name. And he comes along and he has a conversation with Dan. He's like, well, if you look at the councils, their thought of the Trinity wasn't what you're saying. The real Trinity is this. So it's like, okay, like, what do we even mean by the Trinity in general? Are we talking about like how the first and second century Christians understood Jesus' divinity? Because that's very different than what you see at like later councils. As they're conceiving, and then you have people like Unitarians that want to say that Jesus is not divine at all, or you have some people that'll be like, hey, you got the Jesus is Yahweh, which I don't know if I can get on board with that. Like the same exact thing or something like that, or modalism. But I'm a really big fan of partialism. James Agnew.
Okay.
In Philosopher's Garb is his YouTube channel. He's really cool. I like his views on partialism. If we're going to go with the Trinitarian view, I wouldn't say I'm certain. The problem is that it's so difficult of a conversation. Like any text you would point to say, hey, this proves the Trinity, there's like 17 different reasons to doubt that that's the Trinity, which doesn't mean that it's not the Trinity. But what it means, or it doesn't prove Jesus' divinity or whatever, but what it means is it's a super confusing and difficult conversation to understand. And it's like, well, is that a good objection or not? Or like, how much does that change the conversation? Or is this just a vague passage in general? I think that you can make a really good argument that John is describing Jesus as divine, but does that mean he's on the same level as God? Like, there's debates about that. I also like Daniel McClellan's view, which sees that Jesus is not necessarily God in itself, or maybe even not divine, but divine in a way because he has God's image, like he's bearing the name of God. That's really interesting. But like there's tons of nuance. So I really haven't gotten. I'm also thinking that maybe the text is just ambiguous enough that that like we can't say with certainty. I'm open to that idea as well. Of course, a lot of people won't like that, but yeah. So in other words, there's just so many different arguments and papers I haven't read that I can't say that with confidence.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Even though like people are not going to like that, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to accept something just because some pastor or someone on YouTube got really upset about me not believing that, or for some reason said I was going to go to hell if I don't believe in the Trinity or something. I just don't see how that would follow. And even if I was going to go to hell because I didn't believe in the Trinity, does that mean like I should somehow believe it because I wanted to really bad? And so, yeah. What do you guys think?
No, believe me, there are people out there who really think that way. You're going to hell if you buy into that Trinity paradigm. Matthias.
I mean, it's not a good argument at all. What I'm going to say, it's not a very good argument at all.
Okay.
But I found historically, the not all periods, but kind of like um, tend to be against the Trinity. For example, the Julian the Apostate, for example, um,
Yeah, yeah.
and and the movements in the eastern side of the Roman Empire, especially the
Mm.
Syria Christianity, that was the movement. There was the context in which Islam rose,
Yes, yes,
and
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of movements and a lot of sects in Christianity, and a lot of movements that became their own religion, like Islam.
Hmm.
They kind of
Mhm.
appears as opposition to the Trinity, and this is not, oh, because they are against this, this must be true. This is a poor logic. But kind of,
Mhm.
but always found interesting that they appear and what they oppose, like that, along with other stuff, but they oppose that. So I found it, it's weird. Like this one, like the target that they have. So that's kind of like, maybe there is something here that those movements appear all the time, like all the time, including the North American context. You know, like Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, and a little bit the Adventist, and they appear to be against that. So I don't know. It gives me like the suspicion that there is something there that those movements appear and are attacking that target. So
Hmm.
Okay, there's a comment here from 77. Your Munch. I don't know how to. I don't
Nonchalant
know.
capybara. Your nonchalant
Okay,
capybara. Okay. Do
a
you guys
lot
know
of
what a
people will say
capybara is?
it's a that little mammal animal. I don't know.
Yeah, like a
Matthias, do
little
you know?
Pokemon looking thing.
Yeah.
yeah, they live in
Oh,
Brazil.
okay. She says. Okay, I'm assuming that this person is her. A lot of people will send you to hell just because one doesn't believe the right things, quote unquote, right things. It's kind of sad that this religion is so full of such judgmental behavior. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
definitely.
I if you have that's something that, for example, Chesterton used to say, right? Like they say, why in Christianity um, they have killed people, and he said
Yeah.
every movement that they have something extremely important, valuable, transcendent, universal, they are going to do everything to defend it. Why? And
Oh
just
yeah.
scenario, why so many heads were cut during the French Revolution? Because they were for freedom, equality, let's say liberty, equality, and fraternity. And that's why they kill a huge amount of people.
Matthias,
That's why.
don't go
That's
in there
why.
because that's your real house.
Yeah, that's what. For
I know
example,
that's your
in
real house.
and for example, in the Russian, on the Chinese, on all the
Okay, now
socialist
he's
and
there.
communist revolutions in the last century, they wanted equality for all and the freedom from slavery and bringing utopia and heaven on earth. And then they killed like, I don't know, 80 million people. So, but the thing is that the highest the ideal, the people are going to naturally do everything to, because it's so important for them. Even their lives are less important than the ideal. And then you have the kingdom of God and being with God in heaven,
Oh
and the
yeah.
options is separation from God and hell. So people are going to fight that. So Chesterton basically said it's not justifiable, but it's understandable why people will have that rejection. Because if you have something that is you find that's higher than your own life, you are going to defend that, and that's why people who are not believers, they actually do that the same. Actually, last century, the non-believers kill a huge amount of people because of they have an ideal, they had an ideal. So it's kind of like being a little more understandable of those people. I don't feel very judgmental when people say this is
I
you are
know
going to
you
go to
don't.
hell if you don't believe that. I'm not judgmental of those people, because if I am their shoes, I'm thinking about, so it's something transcendent and eternal, that it has
Mm.
to do with their souls and other people's souls and eternity, and therefore they are going to fight for that. So in their shoes, in their mental space, they probably will do the same. So I'm not. That's why I'm not. I'm not
Okay, but
judgmental with them.
you're not saying. I mean, you sound like you're justifying them. You're not doing that, right?
I
You're just
mean,
trying
if you were
Yeah, or
in
you're
their,
a heretic.
you were in the,
yeah.
I think there is a difference between understand someone and justifying someone.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were in their shoes.
You are
in their-
understanding them, but not
Yeah.
justifying them. That's what you're. That's what you mean.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not justifying the communists for killing millions of people, but I understand
Oh,
why
of
they
course.
thought that it was worth it.
You know, I just want to say this about. I mean, I mean, one because Zach brought up this term assumptions. I think when it comes to the Trinity, you know, Christological stuff, Jesus is God or now, whatever. I think we assume, as a modern reader, and maybe you know, later readers just right after the last apostle died off. But there's this assumption that they knew like every last detail, you know, about
No, yeah,
Jesus, God. I mean, Paul. Let's go with Paul, okay? Because I'm a Paul guy. I'm a Paul guy. I like Paul. Zach, do you love Paul?
Honestly, I don't know enough Paul like I should.
Okay, I just want to say this. I mean, Paul, you know, the way he talked about, and this was something that Matthew Novenson correct me, because he said, you know, there is some language in Paul's letters that you don't find in John, for example, the Gospel of John. So why bring John terminology, you know, onto Paul? No. And because we were talking about Christology and monotheism, and we assumed that they knew everything about, you know, God, Christ, divinity. And no, I mean, I don't see that a requirement to understand that. And when it comes to the Trinity, I rather go with, you know, ambiguous. I mean, and I'm happy with that. Now, I personally, I don't know about you guys, because I don't want to talk on your behalf, but as far as I'm concerned, they all there's this line where they agree. This guy was something else. Call it a special, whatever. I mean, something was different on this guy that prompted it prompted them to go and write and put in, you know, in written form what we got now. That's very realistic and very evident to myself. I mean, as a reader, I can see it, I can feel it. I'm there. So I don't know what do you think about that, Zach.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Sambo.
Nothing bad.
Okay, you know, I just want to go back here with this comment, you know, because she said it. I mean, I'm assuming she's a she. Capybaras are
girl.
awesome. Do you know her?
No,
Zach
I do not
is-
know her.
Okay, sure. Defending ideas and opinions is fair and reasonable. I guess what bothers me is that sometimes people could be real dismissive with ideas that differ. Oh yeah, I've been through that. I'm pretty sure Zach as well and Matthias.
Yeah,
And I
sometimes-
dislike that kind of people because you just can't talk to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else you want to add to the Trinity topic, or we should move on?
I'm also open to the idea, and I'm going to sound like a real heretic with this one. I'm open to the idea that
Go ahead.
the depictions of Jesus are not all the same. So I'm open to the idea that John saw Jesus as divine, but not Matthew or Mark.
Okay.
And then that you can even say that without saying that the text contradict, because once again, it's the idea of, okay, what is the text actually claiming? Just because Matthew doesn't mention anything about divinity doesn't mean Jesus wasn't divine. But
That makes sense. Yeah.
but at the same time, I'm also open to the idea that they did disagree, and that maybe Matthew actually just thought that Jesus was just a man or something like that. But that still could have been the Messiah. Once again, like I'm just very open to a lot of different ideas. It doesn't mean that they're all right or something like that, but I think it's really important to see the possibility in things and just be open to new ideas and not just completely discount things just because it makes people uncomfortable.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Be proud of being a heretical Christian. I am.
Yeah, I
am.
think most of us would be considered. All three of us would be heretics to somebody. So
I've been
Well,
told to my face that I'm a heretic.
I'm-
Like literally, I'm not kidding. Seriously, you're a false teacher. You should not be here. Get out of my face. Okay. Yeah. That happens. I don't know about you, Matthias. Has that happened to you? No, probably not, because you're very conservative,
the
reasonable,
yeah,
discreet.
it's well, everybody's running the internet. Everybody knows that somebody is running the internet.
That should
Fair.
be a quote for the book.
Mhm.
Definitely. Okay, I just want to add this last one thing. When it comes to the Trinity, because by the way, I don't know if you know him, Zach Matthew Bates.
Matthew Bates, sure do.
Yeah.
Yep.
He has a book on the Trinity, the birth of the Trinity,
Oh,
and they translate it into Spanish. They have the Spanish translation.
huh.
So I asked him to come on, and his last time I checked with him, we had a bit of a disagreement on the date because he's
Oh,
busy.
okay. Yeah.
I'm busy as well, so it's very complicated right now because there was some changes in my job, so that affected a lot of interviews that I have coming on here on the channel.
Right.
But I expect him to be on the show to talk about the Trinity. But what I want to say is this: when it comes to the Trinity and Second Temple literature, which is the time of Jesus and company, Peter, Paul, and everybody, I just don't see it. I mean, if you say Paul was a Trinitarian, come on, come on, let's be honest.
You think so?
If you, I mean, I trust me, I've had that argument thrown to my face, like, oh, Paul was a Trinitarian. Look at, come on, he was not a Trinitarian. That's being anachronistic. And if you can show me one text from Second Temple literature alluding to this idea, that this doctrine, whatever you want to call it, I'm in. I'm just, I'm willing to concede that. Okay, let's start from there. But I just don't see it. I have yet to find some text that claims that. So that's one other reason why I don't buy it. Me personally, okay.
Oh, you are a heretic then.
But there's a book from Moore Siebeck. That name escapes me, but he's arguing for a proto-Trinitarianism in Mark, in the famous baptism formula. Oh, no, sir, I think it's Matthew, where it says, "Go,
Matthew.
yeah, Matthew, be baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit." See, there it is. It's not Trinitarian; it's proto-Trinitarianism. There's actually this a book from Moore Siebeck arguing for that. I'm gonna put a link as well if you wanna see it, check it for yourself. But that's where I'm at. Okay, that's where I'm at with Trinity so far. Okay,
That's interesting.
let's see.
Yeah, the other conversation is like the arguments in the Gospels about, hey, so Jesus seems to only do something that Yahweh does in the Old Testament, and that's really
Mhm.
difficult. It's kind of like topology, where people kind of want to like, hey, if something happens in the Old Testament with these four parallels and it happens in the New Testament, then they must be talking about the same thing. Like, oh, Moses
Mhm.
is described with the same parallels with that Jesus is, so Jesus must be like the new Moses. But that doesn't mean like he's
Yep.
exactly the same thing. So it's tough to know what the actual what the message is actually communicating when Jesus, forgives sins. But there's the ideas like, oh, well, only God can forgive sins. So does that mean Jesus is God? And all those other similar passages. But yeah, so that's why I'm also really stuck there too. It's like how do I interpret that in any detail? But then there's also the really interesting the two powers in heaven view in Judaism.
Oh yeah.
And I Kip Davis said that the Melchizedek. Some people cite Melchizedek in the Second Temple literature,
Yeah.
Dead Sea Scrolls, for the Trinity, but Kip gave some interesting arguments that the translations aren't very good for that. So, like that's one of those things where it's like, well, as a layperson, if I'm not up to date with the Dead Sea Scroll literature, then like I'm just gonna trust the translation. Like I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that could change how you interpret other things. And then there's also the Jewish Memra, which is really interesting, and later Jewish literature. So my friend James Agnew talks about all that in his book, and he lends with partialism on that. But so like I could see it's like legit view, but it's like there's so many different conceptions and views that the New Testament writers could be taking that it's hard for me to know like which one they're actually applying to Jesus and what the message they're conveying.
There's a book, I think it's from John Ronning from Westminster. He published a book on the book of the Gospel of John and the Memra in the Targums.
Okay.
If you want to check it out. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Matias, anything else you want to add there, or should we move on?
No, I haven't studied that much development of the doctrine of the Trinity, so I cannot give an opinion about its development. But yeah, I haven't studied the topic as much as I should. So
okay, I'll take your word for it. All right, let's move on. Now, the end of the world, eschatology. You know, I remember this the series. I think it was the Left Behind series.
Yeah.
Go ahead and sell everything you have, every possession you may have. Go ahead and sell it because
go to college. There is no time for that because the rapture is going to come.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Okay, so yeah, the end of the world. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that!
Have you guys read this book?
I haven't.
I saw the movie. I'm lazy.
I saw the first movie. I tried to watch the second one. It was just too bad, and then I never watched it. And then the third one was
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage. Yeah, I turned it on for like maybe 5 minutes. Like I can't do it. This is too bad.
The second one had a way better special effects. But
oh really?
The special effects were way better than the first one.
Is that because the first one was really bad with the special effects?
No, the first one has terrible special effects. The CGI is horrible.
Yeah.
The second one is improved a lot, but ironically, that's actually the norm. That actually it seems to be a inverse correlation between quality of special effects and quality of dialogue.
Oh gosh,
actually it was worse.
Yeah,
it's kind of sad because it could. Yeah. Anyway,
I was gonna say that I also saw the. Clearly, I shouldn't like these movies, but I do. It was one on like Netflix or something, and that was like that entire movie. I was laughing. Like it was so bad. Like one of them, one of the scenes was they were in a mall and the rapture occurred or whatever, and all the kids, like their clothes were like floating in the air. Like I was like, what is going on? Like, where did you get this idea from? Like the clothes are just floating in the air. And like, where'd the kids go? And why are the clothes just in the air? It was the weirdest thing.
What happened with everybody? Yeah. No,
but this is what you gotta read this here. So, this is the first sentence of this book. The very first sentence. It said,
"Okay,
Rayford Steele, that's the main character. That's the Kirk Cameron guy. Rayford Steele's mind was on a woman he had never touched." That's the first sentence. Like, talking about a weird intro.
Look at Matias' eyes, dude. Look at Matias' face. Like, shocking. Shocking.
Yeah. Yes. It's so weird that American purity
That is
culture,
Yeah,
weird.
that
exactly.
it's so strange. I mean, I'm too mentally damaged to actually being able to empathize with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is why everybody hates Americans.
uh, well, everybody
I
in
don't
the
hate
Middle
it.
East and Latin America, but
Yeah.
not everybody. Yeah, and some parts of Africa and some parts
Okay.
of yeah.
Okay. Let's on a more serious note. Okay.
Mhm.
The Apostle Paul again. Paul. The Apostle Paul. Let's be honest. The Apostle Paul knew the end was is going to take place in his time. He thought Jesus was coming back during his time.
If I was going to be alive, then he'll say, "No, I'm going to
Exactly.
die before that happens." It's
You
kind of
know.
like, yeah, first Paul, it's going to happen, and then no, I'm going to die first, actually.
Yeah. And personally, I think it's pretty evident in his writings. There's this, and you know, within scholarship, they've been talking about the apocalyptic Paul. You
Oh,
know,
yes.
some side with that view or school of thought. I don't know. I had Beverly Gaventa, my dear Beverly Gaventa, um, and she edited a book on the apocalyptic Paul. It's not the only one, of course, but again, there is this framework, you know, the apocalyptic worldview. By the way, Zach, I don't know if you're aware of this, but John J. Collins is publishing a new book with Ermins about apocalypticism. It's a very short book, you know. I think it's
Okay.
coming on maybe on September. I'm not sure.
Huh.
Um, but again, is this framework? I mean, Paul's playing with this idea, and he senses that Jesus is returning back to earth, and he must be ready. So, and I always run into this question, you know, was Paul wrong about, you know, the parousia and everything? Okay, yes, I'm willing to concede Paul was wrong because he hadn't all the details spelled out to him, you know. Um, but my goodness, it's incredible how people can build a doctrine on a specific verse or chapter, whatever, without considering the whole context of that passage.
Hmm.
And uh, it is, out of my understanding, there's a lot of schools of scatology, you know, pre-mill, post-mill. I think the most radical, I don't know what you think about that, guys, is preterism. Like everything
Full
happened.
preterism. Full preterism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Full preterism. Everything happened. There's nothing left. So forget about that. But Zach, what do you have to say about eschatology? Do you remain in that side? Did you change? What happened?
Yeah, well, I think there's a view by Inspiring Philosophy, and Michael
Okay.
Jones. He argues for amillennialism that there's like no rapture, and that I think what is it? We're continually getting better, and then at some point maybe Jesus will come back or something. There's different ways to think about that. I find that really interesting. As from a biblical text, I don't think it really says much about that. I find that the rapture interpretations are pretty bad usually. In First
Yeah.
Thessalonians, and they misunderstand Jesus. And as you're saying before, like you, well, really, actually, it's what I've been thinking about is that you really have to, with a lot of these different systems, you have to come to a conclusion already, and then
Work your way
find the text.
backward. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then after that, it's like if there's a contradiction with your view, it's like, oh, I'll just explain it away. And I don't think people understand how easy that is to do because we're so biased. So people just don't realize that they're just completely just going against the evidence because because they have a view they have to justify. But anyways, on the preterism topic, I think that you can make a really, really strong. I think it probably is the strongest argument that once you understand Revelation and in the context of the first century, that yes, there does seem to be some type of prophetic parts of it, but for the most part, almost the entire text can be situated in the first century, so that some people would think, oh, this doesn't, we like, what happens, of course, is like, you get a bunch of people that don't know anything about the first century, about Rome or the temple being destroyed, or Herod, or like symbolism with the beast and all that. And then they read the text and they're like, oh, well, I don't see anything specifically about the first century, because of course they don't know anything about the first century. So then they don't ever conclude, well, maybe this is a reference to the first century. But when you actually understand the text and context, well, then it makes perfect sense. I think of all the topics that I'm super confident about in the Bible, I'm extremely confident that Nero is the mark of the beast.
Okay.
Which is funny because Michael Heiser was like, I don't know about that, because Irenaeus, he thought it was something else. And Irenaeus was living really close to the time of Revelation. But of course, like Irenaeus is like a minimum, like what, 50 years away? And that's like a long time. Nero hadn't been alive for like 100 years at least. Or around there. So anyways, the whole point is that I think you can make a really strong argument that once you understand the context, that it almost all fits in the first century really, really well. And that it's also interesting that it's one of the most difficult texts to understand because there's a lot of symbolism. But what I found so interesting about Michael Heiser's series on that, his podcast, is that every single verse almost has a reference to the Old Testament. You can find something that the writer of Revelation was referring to. And now, of course, then there's the question of like, okay, is it actually referring to that, or is he actually referring to the verse in the Old Testament, or is he kind of just have like vague concepts in his mind? So I wouldn't say that like I'm a preterist in regard to like God's just like left us on earth or something like that. But I do think that the strongest argument is definitely situating almost everything that's talked about in the first century.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, following here, I think that's how doctrines tend to work. A group of people prioritize some verses to define how a doctrine works. Yes. And sadly, this group occasionally forget the original context of the passages. I agree. If I remember correctly, Michael Heiser didn't like to talk that much about the end of the world because it was really hard topic, pretty based, honestly. Yeah, actually, he despised this. But, he used to say, because
everybody cheats.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody cheats. Thank you. And remember that phrase? Are you a what was the word? Joiner?
Joiner or splitter?
Or a splitter. A splitter. Yeah. Thank you, Matias. I remember once video session we had because I was we were studying at his school, ministry, Awakening School of Ministry and Theology at Jacksonville, Florida. And we had this video session, and he said, actually, I posted something on Facebook regarding that. And he said, it was cryptic the first time around. It will be the same, I think, the second time around. That's my eschatology. If you want me to say, if I have some eschatology position. Matias, what's your eschatology position?
I honestly, the other thing, I don't have a defined position. I have strong suspicions that because although I'm not I'm not how to say, I'm not a Christian Zionist, and but
No, you're not.
it's very hard for me to keep the story from the Old Testament to the New Testament and say there is no place for the land in the system at the end.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
so I have strong suspicions that the region there has some kind of like a role to play.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. I don't. It's pretty much it. I don't have a problem with one antichrist, like one guy. It's in the Bible. It's pretty clear that there's many antichrists. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a state of being. Like you are an antichrist when you oppose Christ.
Yes,
Yes.
but the thing is though that Revelation, if I'm understanding correctly, doesn't even use the word Antichrist.
Good thing. Good thing we have the enemy.
So you have the mark of the beast,
Mhm.
but yeah, there's definitely multi Antichrist according to the writer of what is it, 3rd John or 2nd John.
I think
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But then there's the question of, okay, is the mark of the beast, and is that part of the Antichrist going on,
Mhm.
or does Revelation only think there's one Antichrist?
I mean, there is the beast, there is a false prophet, and there is the other guy. There is wait, is the dragon and the beast the same? I already forgot if the dragon and the beast were different, but there are three basically, and it seems, for example, the Antichrist is a concept that is before Jesus, because the Antichrist was something that was already present. It was already at least the first one was Antiochus before the Epiphanies in the mind of the people of the New Testament writers.
Right.
So we have idea of an chief enemy of God's people already in Daniel and in the Second Temple period during the crisis with the Greeks. So and you have like so Antichrist could be a state of being, like what something does, and also during history certain people appear and they are like the big bad guy in this period of time, and they fail, and then there is another one who rise up. So that's my eschatology is that I don't have a problem with a big one arising, because there has been the pattern in the past. Like could be like this one, the last one, the final one. Yeah, could be. Actually, I was surprised when I learned that a friend of mine who is very, very reformed, he argued that the final Antichrist was a myth. It doesn't. It doesn't. I was like, what? Yes, because but I said no, then there is no final Antichrist. I was like, that's weird, because I was expecting, because it was very, very, very reformed. So yeah, I have a strong suspicion that the land has a role. There could be a final enemy. The thing is that sometimes when Jesus talk about the future, you have the idea that could be different possible futures, because Jesus in one moment he said, when the Son of Man return, will he find faith in the earth? So it's kind of like talking like maybe there is total apostasy when he returns. Then there are other like verses when he talks about that there will be people enduring to the end. So which one is it? So it's kind of like you have an idea about like possible futures, and maybe what Michael Jones has spoke in the past about, that the prophecy is conditional. You could have multiple possible, like if you do this, I'm going to do this, but if God is going to do the rest, and that's something that happened in our lives actually. To be honest, so
I would say,
yeah.
No, I'm just gonna say there is intentional ambiguity.
Yeah,
that's what I can say. Yeah, okay. Following here with your nonchalant capybara. It's already hard to understand the positions, including in the Bible. It's harder to understand the currently existing positions in our time. Hey. Yeah.
That's definitely
okay.
fair.
I'm gonna say this. Have you heard about universalism?
Am I a universalist and I haven't heard about it? Yes, I definitely have heard about it. It's funny because growing up, like I don't know about you guys, but yeah, I grew up in a Baptist church and was very
Yeah.
very evangelical, as we said. So very very conservative, all your typical stuff. Like there is no contradictions in the Bible at all, and like they're gonna stand on that. Like the entire world depends on it.
Look
Um,
at that.
um, uh, but like just
Yeah.
like very like big on this is God's word, God's literal
Yes.
word. But
Hallelujah.
amen. But as far as universalism goes, like it would have easily like that was super heretical. That was impossible.
Yeah.
That was just wrong. Which is so interesting because now what like 20 30 years later, uh, there's lots of people that are universalist, and at least online, you could it's like you're not really seen as a heretic. I mean,
Mhm,
certain like in the Alyssa Childress circles, maybe the Sean McDowell, those kind of
mhm.
circles, you might be seen as a bad person if you're a universalist, but not today. I think they're like from a philosophical point of view, I think there's super strong arguments for universalism. Nick Quint is actually writing a book, not a book. He's doing his dissertation on universalism and Paul. So that's
Huh.
really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yes. You're right. Sorry for interrupting you. Yeah, this Paul never mentions hell.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
I mean, Bob Ehrman, I think one of the most recent videos, they talk about that. I mean, the idea itself of a hell is not found in Paul's writings. Is that a coincidence? That's
That's
that's an
interesting.
honest question. Is that a
Yeah,
coincidence?
and
I mean,
also
what's going
as
on here?
yes, yeah. Also, you mentioned Zach that the fact that a writer doesn't mention something doesn't mean he doesn't believe in that. That's also we have to take into consideration.
Yeah.
But
At the same time, though,
mhm,
just because the writer's not whether the writer believed it or not is that really what's the most important, because we're
mm,
asking what is the so just like um if they believed in a flat earth, uh
mhm,
or maybe they didn't believe in a flat earth, like
That
it
made
doesn't
me
really
go
matter
there.
for what we're thinking. So a lot of them probably believed that Moses wrote the entire Torah, the entire thing, even the parts where he said that
he is the
where it
most
says he
humble
died.
or
Yeah,
the
the
most
humble
humble
part too.
per in the.
Right. Um, but like my point is that um, the question for me, at least, is like from a historical point, that's an interesting question. But like, what is the text teaching?
Mhm,
So, um,
you're right. You're right.
but it's also really important. Like, did he believe it and just not comment on it? Like that doesn't really tell us much about inspiration, but it's still like an interesting historical question.
Yeah, yeah. And also one thing that there's an argument from the Orthobros, but
Okay.
I think that's very convincing that the fact that um and N.T. Wright has said when you have the letters of Paul, you have basically a correspondence between two people or
Uh,
and Paul and a group of people, and you only have half of the correspondence. Like
yeah.
N.T. Wright, basically, it's like the you have to basically reverse engineer what you have Paul's answer. You have to reverse engineer the questions because we
Mm.
don't have it. And so, what were they asking Paul? And the thing is that and also in the ancient world, people had no problem with a hell-like state. Actually, in some civilizations, they thought that everybody went to some kind of cadaverous, very bad
Yeah.
place. It didn't matter. If you were a
Existence.
Babylonian, it was obvious. So to finish, so you can, or Marv, you can show the book.
No, no,
Um,
no. Just
so
just
yeah,
for I mean for
yeah.
for,
But
for you
but the,
guys.
mhm.
Go ahead, Matthias. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
but the thing is, one of the things the Orthobros used to say that why they are against sola scriptura is that Paul wrote those letters, but those were the correspondence that we have, and then you have all the things that Paul thought he teaches
Mhm.
in all those churches that he planted, and they say, well, that's church tradition. And then you have into discussion how much that is true, how much comes from Paul, how much was an accretion from late. Yeah, but they have a good argument that
Hmm.
what Paul wrote is not everything that Paul thought and was teaching to the churches.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we have literally half a conversation there.
Okay, but okay, that's a very important point you're making that right there. I mean, what Paul wrote doesn't represent his whole thought. I
Yeah,
agree with that, but
I
that's
only
a
have yes.
double-edged sword argument. Let me tell you why. Because people put a lot of emphasis on the written word,
Yeah,
and
true.
they build an entire doctrine edifice on the text itself.
Hmm.
So that's kind of contradictory. I'm not saying you are being contradictory. I mean, I'm just speaking about people because they are fond of making this kind of arguments, but that can be a play against them
Yes,
because
yes.
if that doesn't represent the whole thought of Paul, then what can we do about that? What we don't know about Paul's thought? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's where
that's
the
impossible to know. I mean, only
yeah
God
that,
gets
that's
to
where
know.
that's where people argue. That's where church tradition enters, and then you have to basically you have to check or trying to research or trying to discover how much that is true, how much comes from Paul and how much is an accretion from later century, and that's very very hard to do.
Okay, look at that.
Uh,
If Paul never mentioned hell, I would guess he never mentioned it because he didn't consider it that important or relevant. Maybe. I respond to it, Mateo, Zach, sorry. Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah. Now the book behind us, it's this. I think this is the third edition. The Evangelical
Oh,
Universalist, written by Gregory MacDonald. Uh, and this is, to my knowledge, the latest literature on this topic, published recently. Uh, oh my goodness. Of course, this is not the only one, but I have read the second edition. It's really compelling. I'm not a universalist per se. No, I'm not. But I kind of flirt with the idea. They say there are variants of universalism, so there are some few, but there are some who argue that even the devil can be redeemed. I'm not there. But when it comes to God restoring humanity to its full, that's a big deal.
hmm.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So that's. I mean, just I'm gonna be dropping links of every book we've been bringing up during this
Every book, huh?
conversation. Yeah,
You've been
yeah.
busy.
I'm taking notes here. That's why I got my pens on my paper, and I'm gonna put those links for anyone who's interested. Go and find them. Okay, I think we're pretty good with that. Let's continue here.
yeah.
What else do we
Mhm.
have? What else? We
Well,
got.
when
Go ahead.
mentioning universalism, I actually like the idea a lot.
Oh,
But
thank you.
if but
But
like
there's a big but.
yeah, what was that's Croatian theologian that he wrote Exclusion and Embrace. What was his name? Because it's very hard to pronounce.
uh,
Miroslav Volf. He's
Dang,
oh,
Croatian, I think. And he basically said, if you were
that's a pretty cool view. I
yes,
like
yes,
that view.
yeah. So
Redeeming
basically,
Satan. Shoot.
yeah.
I
So
mean, sorry,
well,
I just want to say this very quick, Matthias, because I don't want to forget about that. I
mhm.
mean, is Satan as a son of God? Yes or no?
Mm,
Yes or no? I will say yes.
mhm.
Go ahead, Matthias. Complete your
Yeah.
thought.
Miroslav Volf, he said that you actually will not like universalism if you were uh, a guy in the 19th Yugoslavia. during the Yugoslav wars. It's there is a. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Universalism is wrong, because we have an emotional need of seeing everybody safe, because we want them. We want them to be safe. At the same time, you were in Yugoslavia during the Yugoslav wars. You want some people to actually not be safe. So, and there is another emotional component. So, if you were in another context, suffering another thing, not the death of a loved one who didn't know Christ, which is another kind of suffering, but suffering every man in your village getting a bullet in the head. Then you will have another expectation. So that's something you have to take care of, basically, what kind of suffering you want to avoid with your view. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, now let's move on here. We got Cristalli, Harlow, or something in the middle. I think we already touched on that a little bit. I don't know if you want to add anything else there, Zach, about Cristalli, high, low,
we're good.
something there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Then we got Atonement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Atonement.
I'm a big fan of Andrew Valera.
Oh yeah. The
I've
Lamb
talked
of
with
the
Max.
Free.
I've talked with Max Botner a lot on my channel on Atonement. PSA is like, I could see why someone would accept it, and when I first started looking into Atonement stuff, like, it kind of seemed like it. Once you get into that view, it's hard to see anything else, because people see PSA as the gospel, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Of course, that goes into, like, what is the gospel? How should we even determine the gospel anyways? Most people today think the gospel is just whatever they think is important. But or like, they don't even think like, oh, well, how's the gospel actually, the word evangelion, actually used in the New Testament? But like, atonement in general, that's one of those topics that it's like the Trinity, where you're taught, hey, this is so important, and if you don't accept this, then you're going to hell or something. So you have people like William Lane Craig, who's like an actual scholar, actually written in theology for a long time, and just like completely misrepresents Andrew Valera. And you have other people that just will not listen to the other side, which is just crazy on PSA. And then you have like people arguing the early church fathers are PSA, when really it's just like another form of atonement. And they just think, oh, well, this little bit of atonement is that's all this PSA is. But no, like, PSA has lots of different aspects to it, as we know today. And then also Eric Ybarra, who's a Catholic, was talking with Gavin Ortland the other day, and he was like, yeah, so we both believe in PSA, but their views of PSA are completely different. And like, he was trying to like get some brownie points with the evangelical Protestants, but yeah, he just wasn't like, it wasn't being straightforward there. So I don't know. I kind of get annoyed with the PSA crowd, to be honest, just because of the way they handle themselves. But then there's also the question of theology. Oh, then there's James Agnew. He has a book on tying atonement to the divine council. Have you guys read that? You're muted, Mark. But yeah, it's really interesting. You should. I'll send you guys some videos.
I haven't. Yeah,
he's got a really cool book with that, because there's the divine council, but nobody ever ties that to atonement. Like, what does the divine council have to do with Jesus dying on the cross? There's connection at all.
Tell us about that, because
but he argues that there's like Michael Heiser didn't even make any connection there. Like, he makes all these arguments about the sons of God and stuff like that, but doesn't mention anything at all about atonement in that regard. So that's what James Agnew argued. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it's a really interesting argument. So I'll send you guys some videos about it.
Good.
Send me the name of the book. I mean, just to to put her
The,
there.
the
Yeah.
devil's disbarment.
Okay.
The devil's disbarment.
Yeah.
Um,
So there is something about atonement that is very interesting that they never the what's substitutionary penal substitution.
yeah.
PSA.
Yeah, that penal substitution atonement. That atonement is for the land in the Torah.
Oh,
For example,
okay.
yeah.
Repeat that. I'm not sure what you
Okay.
said.
For the land, let me read you two texts that have been in my mind for a while. Like numbers,
Wow.
yeah, number 35, because I think maybe God is
Okay.
give me a sign that maybe you should study this. I don't know. Numbers 35, 33 to 34. Do not pollute the land where you are. Bloodshed pollutes the land, and atonement cannot be made for the land on which blood has been shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it. Do not defile the land where you live and dwell, and where I dwell, for I, the Lord, dwell among the Israelites. That's Numbers 35, 33 and 34. Deuteronomy 32, 43. Rejoice, O nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will make revenge on his enemies and make atonement for his land and people. So God is the one who makes the atonement for the land. And the shedding of blood cannot do atonement for the land except for the blood of the one who committed the crime. So what's the connection?
Yeah, what's the connection? Because you quoting those passages remind me about, and this is another scholar Zach had on his channel, David Burnett, big guy,
Yep.
big guy,
Yeah.
love him.
Love he never accepts invitations, but anyway, love.
Oh no, he's having second thoughts. Maybe he's coming. He will.
Good.
Yeah. But what I mean to say is that they were having this Q&A with Heiser and some others guys there, and there was an atonement question from the crowd.
Sure.
And David, I like the way David tackled the question, because he said it's a quagmire when it comes to the atonement. There's a lot of theories. And he said, like, he pointed out that how is that possible that there is this atonement for the temple, the utensils in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the temple sin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he took it from there and then connected with the PSA. Not literally, he didn't mention like the word itself, the term. But again, Zach, I mean, I have this this question. I mean, are we missing anything here with the atonement? I mean, maybe we are extrapolating things that shouldn't be there. I mean, because Ron Johnson, which is maybe Heiser's best friend, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said this, but he doesn't seem atonement in Christ's death.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, it all depends on what you mean by that. And
Exactly.
There's also the question of sacrifice as well. What does it mean to be a sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really am not enough of a scholar on that as I'd like to be. I don't know enough about the topic. I like Andrew Rilla's
Neither
book.
am I.
So like, if you had to like make me a betting person, I would say whatever he says. but you know, I don't know for sure.
And there is thing that atonement, at least in the New Testament in Paul, it kind of like resets the cosmos in Romans, because atonement in the Torah was resetting the land. So in Paul, Christ's sacrifice put a reset button in the cosmos somehow, in some way. So that's an angle that you never hear actually, but it's there. So. And that's why those two texts that you cannot do atonement you pollute the land and you cannot do atonement for the land, but God is going to do that for the land and for his people. What does that mean? So is there something there? And that text in Deuteronomy 32:43, there is a variation because it's in a variation which is a divine counsel context, the variant. So yeah.
Okay, one point that I would connect with the divine counsel and atonement, the way you are talking about that, Matthias, it's that chapter. I think it's Romans 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Where it says, creation is, it's just waiting for the apocalypse of the sons of God who are already walking out there among us.
He's waiting.
Because the creation is waiting. Can't wait for the sons of God to take over, creation, just to because they are the ones to who can really
that's
creation as
creation.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's why all animals love to be pet, because they remember Adam. They remember the first master, so they want that to happen again.
Amen.
I'm not really joking in that one. With that one.
Sure, you
that's
are.
smile, Matthias. Okay, let's move on. I think we're pretty good there. Okay, this is a special topic of mine. I don't know about you. Genesis 6, the infamous Genesis 6, the sons of God. Zach, you have made a couple of videos. Actually, you had Mirjam T. Brand on your show.
Yeah, a few different times. She has her own YouTube channel. She's so cool. I think she's awesome, like super interesting.
I tried to make contact with her via her blog.
Oh yeah.
I got no response. I don't know what happened. But Zach, do you really believe that divine beings copulated with women, and then giants were born to them? And giants.
If I'm a betting man, I would go with no. That you're getting to like historical questions. So I don't like. I guess there's kind of an assumption that, hey, if something's in the Bible, it has to be historical or it's wrong or something like that. But that's not like, or that it's somehow lying. So I don't follow that line of argumentation. And then it also has to do with 2 Timothy 3:16 with the inspiration thing that you were talking about earlier. It's just like, well, if this isn't God breathed, then like what are we really worried about here? But anyways, no, I think that Genesis and Exodus and most of the Torah in general, while it has some historical aspects, especially Genesis 1-11, that it would be considered in the genre of myth. Not that it doesn't have historical things in it, but that it is the point of it is talking about other types of truth, something that's true, that like it's communicating a message. Do I think that the text is actually talking about giants? I do think so, even though Genesis 6 is a little vague about it. But I think the strongest evidence for me is the Numbers passage, where it talks about how they're like scoping out the land, and the spies come back and they're like, yeah, they were all giants. And then people want to say, well, it doesn't mean we should trust them. But the very idea that they would think that there are giants in general, whether they were wrong or right, isn't really relevant to me. But they thought that there were giants, which means that the people of the time thought there were giants. And if they connected that term with the word Nephilim, and that's the Nephilim word is what's used in Genesis 6. So I think it's the strongest argument. But you mentioned other things like Og's bed, or Goliath, or the different connections with the Rephaim, and how it has parallels with the Apkallu and other stuff, and how there seems to be other ideas of giants in the ancient Near East, like with Gilgamesh. So I am Yeah, I do think it's giants, but I don't think it's historical, which that's a big letdown because half the reason people want there to be giants is because it's so cool. It's like, well, it's not. I think it's giants, but it's not historical. So it's like, oh, well, darn.
Okay. I love this topic. I mean, I think we are on on the safe ground if we say that ancient Israelites, ancient authors, they believed it.
Yeah,
For
that's
them,
probably
it
true.
was real. Okay, just like Greeks and Romans talking about
The
Titans,
Titans. Yep.
Olympian gods.
Right.
This is something they took it like point blank. It happened. Now I'm gonna play the devil's advocate a little bit, Zach, Matthias.
Okay.
If that didn't happen, then what do we do with that passage about the angels being thrown in, prison, prisons there in gloomy darkness, on Peter? Like, okay, so
Tartarus.
yeah, the tartar, I was, it's mouthful for me, tartarao, tartarus. But Zach, again, what do you think about that? I mean, what do you make of that? Those passages there.
Yeah, I mean, the writer probably. I mean, I think most of the writers of the New Testament probably had the view that Genesis 6 was talking about giants. Obviously, Jude and Second Peter did, but
Mhm.
I mean, like as a Christian, what I would say is I don't think the text is trying to give us some like divine wisdom about where the angels or the sons of God are. They were mentioned to communicate a point about the text. So I don't necessarily see that I need to like accept that for like as a Christian or something like that.
Okay.
Is that where you're going with that?
No, that's it has to do with the subtitling on Heiser's book, recovering the supernatural worldview of the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the struggle. I mean, they believed it. They took it like literally it happened. So that's when it comes, that's the tension right there. Do I believe what the text is saying or not? Okay. Perhaps that's the middle, the middle section of the argument. I don't know, but that's where people struggle. I mean, if you're an atheist, if you're a biblical scholar or whatever, or seriology or whatever, and you're an atheist, you just said something like, "That's fantasy. That didn't happen. That's myth here and there." But me as a Christian, you, Matthias, we value scripture for what it is, but then we are confronted with this kind of stuff. Did it happen or not? That was I posed. I remember that I posed a question along those terms to Professor Lorenz Stockenbrock,
Okay.
because I think I don't know if you remember this, Matthias, but I asked him this about the book of the Watchers.
Did it
Chapter 1,
happen?
2.
You ask. Yes.
Did that happen?
Did that happen?
Is that historical stuff? I don't quite remember his answer. We need to check the section in their interview.
Yeah, he said that no,
remember
but
that?
that's not the point.
Hmm.
No, but that's the point. He put another example. He said that when he was younger, he with his friends
Mhm.
basically summarized all the arguments for the resurrection of Jesus, and they got to the conclusion, yes, it happened. And then he asked himself, now what? So it happened. So the thing is that what was the next step? So that's what he compared with that. Like he thought that the resurrection happened, but then what's the point of the resurrection? And then he say the Genesis 6 didn't happen literally, but what was the point of the author? So
Here's another thing. According to Enochic tradition, we all know this, but according to Enochic traditions, demons are the disembodied spirit from the Nephilim.
Mhm.
If you take that, and this is something that Hans Musike, who is a friend of David Bernetti, who appeared on the Heiser's Naked Bible podcast, if you take that route there of interpretation, I mean, Jesus literally faced the remnants of the Nephilim. And you remember Heiser, and Zach brought this up about typology, because Jesus is not only seen as the new Moses, is also seen as the new Joshua. So it's like the new Joshua show up on earth to come and conclude what was not concluded back there during the conquest narratives. Because if you quite remember, uh the conquest, yes, they entered the land and everything, but they didn't completely exterminate. They didn't wipe the Nephilim off from the land.
Mhm.
They wind up in with the what do you call it? The Philistines. Uh, those places there in front of the Mediterranean. So it's like that Jesus is coming to complete the mission. Again, Zach, playing the devil's advocate. You believe demons exist, right? I believe demons exist. Matthias, you believe demons exist.
Well,
So
we're from. It's very hard to be a materialist if you live in the countryside of Latin America.
Interesting.
okay.
Or in the yes, or in the countryside of Russia. You, for example, I have a friend who is a non-believer, and he was surprised when someone from the university, that I think it was another scholar,
Okay.
because he's a physicist, and he comment, yes, oh yeah, I was in the countryside, I was in Siberia, and then he started narrated him the appearance of spirit-like beings, and he was like in shock, not so much about the story, but about the person who was talking to that, because it was like, what, that happened? I said, yeah, that happened. That's not really unusual in certain places
Hmm.
in Siberia. And in Latin America, it's kind of like the same. Like if you go to the countryside, it's very hard to be a materialist, actually. So, and we're from Latin America, so.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Like when you talk to missionaries in America, it's people, we see demons, and then there's also some people that think that you could, like, everything is a demon, like addiction is a demon, depression is a demon, or something like that. So like you get different strands, but in America, it's like almost most people, it's just like assumed, okay, demons just don't exist, except for certain
Yeah.
Christian groups.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of the conversation. All right. Woman in Ministry, Zach. You interview let me Margaret Mosco.
Yep.
Uh because she's been doing a lot of stuff. Margaret, if you're listening to this podcast
I don't think
episode,
she's listening.
hello. Or maybe afterwards. Whatever. But Zach, what do you think about women in ministry? Should women preach, pastor? Okay, mind you, you said you all are coming out of from a Baptist background. It is my understanding that Baptists are really they dislike the idea of women being
Yeah.
pastors.
Yeah, I go to an SBC church, which is the group that is like, making it a rule that their entire group of churches can't have women pastors of any kind, no matter if they're like a children's pastor or whatever. But no, this is one of those other topics where, like, I haven't really looked into it enough of why it happens, but there's certainly like a lot of hostility, and there's an idea like, hey, if you don't accept this, that women aren't allowed to be pastors, then you're not taking the Bible seriously and you're a pagan because it's so obvious, and the only reason you would reject this is because you're trying to ignore the Bible and therefore you're a heretic. But what was one of the most interesting things to me is that I was never like that, as far as like I was never dogmatic about it. Like I understood, okay, they got these texts over here and that seems to, say that, but like it was never that big a deal to me. And I then I heard more scholars just talk about it, just because I was aware of the conversations. Like, Michael Heiser would say stuff like, I did find it interesting. Michael Heiser himself was be like, hey, so do you have some good arguments on this side and good arguments on that side? I quickly realized that I don't think there's any good arguments on the complementarian side at all. I think every single one of them has problems, like really big problems. Like
Yeah.
the two biggest reasons to reject women in ministry are 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. And that text, you can make an extremely strong argument that it was not even in the original text, that it was added later. And then even if you do think it was in the original text, then there's like 7 other reasons to reject that it's specifically saying that every single church that women should be silent in, including pastors. So that has like so many reasons to reject it. And then also 1 Timothy 2, there's it's like so ambiguous about what it's talking about. Like there's like 18 different views on just one passage, and each individual word in that text is debated. And the idea of authenteo, which is for 1 Timothy 2:12, which is like I don't permit or give authority or whatever for women to preach. It's like it doesn't say whatever it is. I don't exercise. Women can't exercise women over authority over men or something. That authenteo is it's only used one time in the entire biblical text, and it's an extremely rare word. So what are we supposed to do with that? Why would we're basically putting an entire doctrine on whether women can preach or be pastors on one individual text, and it doesn't even say pastors. It says just in general, I don't allow women to exercise authority, if you interpret that way. But there's a lot of really good reasons to translate it in a different way, like in the way of abuse. I mean, that word is used to refer to like physical abuse. So it's such an ambiguous word. And not only that, but people tie it to 1 Timothy 3 when there's not a clear reason to connect that. And then Paul's reasoning, complementarians are super they contradict a lot on how Paul makes his argument, because they want to be like, hey, so Paul says that women can't be exercising authority because of Adam being created first. But was Adam created first? Yeah, Adam created first. But like in Genesis 1, Genesis 2, that wasn't primogeniture. Like the entire text of Genesis is against that idea. And then so it's like, well, even if he was created first, does that mean that somehow like he's better, or there's some kind of deficiency? Taryn Williams does a really good job of laying out each of the arguments, and how each of the arguments that people make for explaining how Paul's logic, like how does being created first have anything to do with whether or not women can teach? It doesn't make any sense. So like there's different ways complementarians try to like understand that, but they like have really either they have really bad consequences or they just don't make sense, which is why for almost like the first 1800 years of Christianity, women were seen as less than, as inferior, partially because of the way they interpreted that passage, but also because they were sexist in general. And then you have people saying, oh, there's the history question of like, oh, well, you're going against all of church history, which is not true. There were tons of women priests, presbyters, and tons of women deacons all throughout history, and then some even possibly bishops. But even if we want to go that route, people also accepted slavery for a long time and thought the Bible explicitly talked and used the exact same arguments, like in Ephesians 5, or in the Torah for women can't be priests. They also use the arguments for talking about Torah with slaves and stuff like that. So, in other words, I'm very dismissive of complementarian arguments, to be honest. Like, I can understand why you would think it's obvious, but if you just look at the text just from an unbiased perspective, even just a little bit, you'll see that there's problems with each individual argument. Not even mention Genesis, where like there's so many arguments based on Genesis, and it's like the point of this text is not to talk about authority, like that. Nothing about Genesis. Like, people just completely read into stuff, and they kind of just like trying to look for justifications for their views. That was a long tangent there.
Sorry, I'm using the mute movement there. Thank you, Zach. No, preach it. That's why I didn't interrupt you. Okay.
Yeah, what you got there? What are we looking at? I wasn't even paying attention to the screen.
No. This was
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, Priscilla and Aquila and Phoebe. There's so many women doing the roles of a pastor in the early church. That complementarians just don't understand that argument at all, but it's like really compelling evidence.
Oh yeah. And okay, just let me show this coming here. Anthony, what is your denomination? I'm not saying this is a gotcha question, just curious. I am non-denominational, but take the Protestant out, I am truly non-denominational. That sounds like a real but thank you. Well, me personally, I am also non-denominational. I don't know about the other guys, Matthias and Zach.
I mean, I go to a Southern Baptist church, but I am definitely non-denominational.
Okay. Matthias.
I'm going
What
to
are you, Matthias?
I go to the Anglican Church. I really like certain
Okay.
aspects of Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, but that's
Okay.
No.
Good for you. Okay, what else? Keep being heretical, Zach. That's the right way.
Right. Pretty
Yes.
much every topic you said, like you've asked about, someone could call me a heretic about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you say it right way, being heretical is basically being a hipster. Oh, it's being a hipster.
Oh,
Oh, look, I'm so different, and everybody
Yeah.
is so different. And then you become basically the norm because everybody wants to be different.
Yeah.
Actually, there was a guy. It was called the hipster effect. It was a guy who saw an article about how hipsters looks, and then he sent an angry email to the newspaper. Why you use a picture of me as a hipster as an example of how all hipsters looks like? And they say, it's not your picture. You are not in the picture. You just look identical to the other guy. So
Interesting.
okay, that was a tangent. Sorry.
give me just a moment. Perhaps I can submitting. Should work. I think so. But no, just saying. This was a paper. Okay, this is not original to me. So
Oh, Richard Fellows,
Right.
yes.
yeah, credit what is due. I think Dan McClellan referenced this article in one of his reels.
Mhm.
I mean, I just can't get it why people gives a lot of shade or even hate to Dan McClellan. I mean, he's a good guy. And you know the typical argument, he's a Mormon. So what?
Yeah, but
So
even
what?
yes, so what? You're right. You're 100% right. But he doesn't believe anything based off his Mormonism. If anything, he believes it because he's a super critical scholar. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he's more of an atheist in his beliefs than Mormon.
It's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like cultural Mormon, like he doesn't drink
Yeah.
coffee or something.
Right.
Mm.
Right. He doesn't believe any of the Mormon historical claims are true.
Yeah. Okay, so just saying that. So he referenced this article is in open access. Again, I'm putting here on my note because I tend to forget things. I'm gonna be also dropping a link on this article so you can, if you wanna read it, and go out and take take a walk in with a cup of tea, as Tim Mackey used to say. You can read it and enjoy yourself. So that article, it's just as a reference to what Zach was saying, is arguing that those verses, 34, 35, it is an interpolation, later interpolation. My goodness, how can we know about that? I mean, how is that possible? I'm not a critical, a text critic, scholar, but how do they know? I mean, many years, centuries, in history, and they came up with these conclusions.
Right.
Cool.
But the
Yeah,
thing is
okay,
though that,
yeah.
but the thing, one of the interesting is that people in the ancient world for the last 2,000 years, Christians, have been relying on this text, maybe not 2,000 because maybe it wasn't original, but say 1,700 years, have been relying on this text for evidence for why women shouldn't be priests or bishops.
Mhm.
And one of their huge arguments is based on a total misunderstanding of what the actual text is. And by the way, even if this is the case, even if it's original, it doesn't mean it was written to every single church. And the same thing as 1 Timothy 2. That is so clearly, that entire article, that entire book, 1 Timothy, is very clearly written to one individual group. It's referencing like basically cults at the time, rival Christian groups or something like that, or maybe non-Christian, whatever. But it's referencing a teaching, and the text even says that women are going around telling people wrong things. So like, there's just some odd assumption that, hey, this applies to every single person for all time, when the text doesn't say anything like that.
Yeah, I just wanna very quick. I just wanna read the abstract. I think it is. It says, okay, Matias, you do it, please. Just read the abstract here.
Yeah,
If you
let
can
me
see it there.
make it bigger.
You see it?
Okay. Yeah. Abstract. Transposition of large sections of the text in the New Testament manuscripts occur only when omissions and chronological problems were quote unquote corrected. It is argued here that the words commanding that women be silenced in 1 Corinthians 14, 34 to 35, which appears elsewhere in Western manuscripts, were interpolated, and the interpolation probably created the textual variant at 14.337 that transposed Priscilla and Aquila at 16.19, so that the woman will not host a church. Textual variants at 16.19 in the Western manuscripts are explicable if Prisca, originally precede Aquila here, as she does elsewhere. 2 Timothy 4:19 is an early witness in Prisca's precedence in First Corinthians. Prisca's precedence in First Corinthians. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's the thing, I mean, that completely would change the picture here if that were the case. I'm putting it that way because, again, I can we just can't rely on what scholars put out there in reputable and academic journals. But he's arguing for that, it's an interpolation. No, sorry, Paul didn't write about that. I can recall again, Debbie Burnett. He said once in another Q&A that there are evidence where they changed this name from Junias. They
Right.
changed it to a masculine because they were not down with Paul as having a woman as an apostle.
Right.
And I was like, what?
Right.
That really happened? Yes, it happened. Deal with that.
Right.
Okay, let's continue. Canon formation. Zach, what do you think about canon formation?
Canon. So
yeah, canon. Yeah.
This is one thing where I think the Catholics get a lot of things right here. Now the Orthodox, they're like they think the Septuagint is like more authoritative or something, which I can't get on board with that. Like Michael Heiser, he'd be like, yeah, sometimes in the Septuagint you'll be reading it and you're like, what were they thinking? They were clearly off their rocker when they were translating this part. And of course, there was what they call the Septuagint, of course, was not even one specific text. Like it was multiple different translators over different periods of time. So like, I don't know, there's just so many misconceptions about the canon. I mean, there were doubts about, it's not even like the texts of the New Testament were automatically accepted or anything like that. There were doubts about Hebrews and Revelation and 2nd and 3rd John, and to the very end, until everybody got together and was like, and this was just happened to be in the 4th century when Constantine, starts to take over, and all of a sudden the church theology essentially becomes imperialized, where you all have to agree. This is not that this happened at Nicaea or something like that, but it was around this time where you get more agreement on everything. But the point is that you have like big debates about these texts all the way up until the 4th century, and then all of a sudden, on the 4th century, it's like, okay, we're going to go with that one. And like, so yes, the Orthodox, the Protestants, the Catholics all agree on what 22 books or 21 or whatever in the New Testament. But where does that come from? Because for the previous 300-400 years, people accepted all kinds of other New Testament books, like the Didache, like what can't I think of it? The Barnabas text, whatever that was called.
And the Shepherd of...
Yeah, Shepherd of Hermas.
Yes.
Hermas.
Yeah, right. And there's one other one I can't think off the top of my head that was very popular, but those were just completely thrown out. And the problem was that when we get into these discussions, is it just a coincidence that all the Catholics just happen to believe only the arguments that support their position, and only the Orthodox, and then the Protestants, like people like Gavin Ortland or Wes Huff, they just happen to only accept the arguments for their Protestant canon and just happen to conveniently have really bad arguments for the rest of the texts. Like, it's one thing to like have good arguments for your thing, but like people like Gavin Ortland and Wes Huff, they their arguments are just like really bad. Like Daniel McClellan had a video responding to Wes Huff on Enoch. Wes Huff gets stuff on Enoch wrong all the time. Every single time he comments on it, it's something new that's wrong. Like,
why am I not surprised?
Right. Like the only people that are rejecting that Enoch is being quoted by Jude are like super evangelical Christians. Like it's like there's no critical scholar, or not even just like normal Christian, not even like on the evangelical side, but on like the normal Christian side, or even on the progressive Christian side, that like it's almost next to impossible. I've never seen any that don't think that Jude was quoting Enoch. Like, like there's no problem from an inspiration perspective, but like people are just like really, uncomfortable about that someone, like a biblical author, would quote Enoch. So like it just makes people super biased. And so like the canon discussion is one of the most biased conversations. But I do think that there's a serious case you can make that like the earliest Christians, like it's harder to find someone that rejects Enoch in the early church in the first, second, and third centuries than it is to find somebody that accepts it. Like almost everybody seems to accept it, and there's no clear instance except for like maybe one guy and like maybe Josephus, maybe, but like he's super hyperbolic, so it's not even clear what he believes about these ancient texts. So long story short is that, like, I'm not saying that Enoch is inspired. I don't like look at it and see it as an inerrant or something. But I think that like people are super biased on the conversations about that scripture, like what is canon, and it's like super easy to just accept whatever your clan believes, whatever your pastor told you. Ironically, there, and no pun intended. And
I love
Lee
that.
Martin McDonald,
Yeah.
I don't know what he is. You guys didn't interview him, did you?
No, I haven't.
He
We
like
haven't. No, we haven't.
so
We
he's
have
definitely getting old up in age. And when I talked to him, we talked about the Jewish canon when that first formed, and there's all kinds of bias about that. People think that the Jewish canon, the what they thought, like gosh, the I can't think of whatever it is. Anyways, whatever it is, that
Let me help you
like
there.
the prophets, help me out here, guys. The law, the prophets, and the
And the
other
writings.
writings. Yeah.
And the other, yeah.
Whatever the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, and whatever. Yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so like we talked about that, and there's all kinds of misconceptions about that because people think that it was like formalized in like the 4th century BCE, which is there's like zero evidence for. But yeah, Lee Martin McDonald is like the best. Like he's got maybe a couple of arguments that are like iffy out of like 1,000. Like he knows what he's talking about. Although when I talked to him in person, I think he's getting a little bit older because he would just go off on random tangents. Like not exactly what I was asking you about there, but let's go to the next one here.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, so there's that one of the books of Martin McDonald there. If you want to keep on with
Right.
that.
Right.
Okay. Last one here. Christian nationalism.
Okay.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. I don't know. I mean, anybody who uses the Bible to argue for Christian nationalism, I think is going to be on pretty weak evidence. But there's like so much politics involved with it, where it's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're just trying to support whatever you want to believe, and then go to the Bible to find it. But like I'm not like some hardcore Republican or anything like that, so I don't think it's crazy, but at the same time, I think it comes from a lack of understanding of like what the biblical text is doing.
It's a very American-centered debate because
Interesting.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not,
Yeah.
because in the early 2000s, that's why I'm I'm better let you just explain because that's your context. So sorry, I was
No,
going
it's
to
okay. You tell me what you think about my group.
Okay, so I am very suspicious of people who are very against Christian nationalism.
Okay.
Why? Because
Why? Yeah.
in
Why?
the early 2000s, after the 9/11, the US was, in fact, acting as a Christian nationalist nation because the entire war on terror was sold as a crusade against the barbarians, Muslims who attacked.
Oh, interesting.
And George Bush was actually telling Jack Chirac, the president of France at that time? I forgot it was Sarkozy. Jacques Chirac. I think it was no. I don't remember the president of France at that time. And Bush said, and I quote, "I believe the forces of darkness are acting now, and they want to destroy Israel. That's why we have to attack Iraq."
Oh gosh.
Because France did not participate in the coalition of the willing to attack Iraq during the 2003 invasion. And Bush was arguing from the Bible to do that. And the thing is that people who are against Christian nationalism now, some of them in the early 2000s were very happy to quote the Bible to send him young patriotic Americans to die looking for weapons of mass destruction that were not real, and they knew they were not real, and they sent me anyway. So that's why I say,
I wouldn't say that. I think that like people like Bush were pretty deluded.
yeah, well, yes, they were pretty. Yes,
I don't think
I
they
mean,
knew that. I think
no,
that there was
no,
no
yeah,
evidence for it, but I don't think
Okay.
they. I think
no,
they
but
were. Yeah, keep
yes,
going.
You
yeah,
heard it right here. He said
yeah,
it.
you're right, because Bush wasn't the brightest light bulb in the room. He never was. It still isn't. But the thing is that, but that's why I'm suspicious. Like, oh, Christian nationalism is the greatest threat to our democracy. Yeah, but some of them in the early 2000s, like Biden, were like, no problem, reference in the Bible.
Oh, really?
So Biden was very pro-war. Was very pro-war in the 90s during the Yugoslav wars. He actually was very pro-NATO expansion in the early 90s. The thing is that now he doesn't remember that, because now he doesn't remember much of anything. But the thing is,
Dang. You've
but
been
the thing
watching
is-
CNN. You don't? Do you guys know what CNN is?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing
all
is, yes, the thing is,
Trust me, we know.
that's
it.
why they're suspicious. Oh, they say, oh, Christian nationalism is so evil. And the thing is, I suspect that if the war in Iran now gets pretty bad, a lot of people are going to forget that Christian nationalism is evil, and they're going to say, oh yeah, that's a very Christian duty to go to fight in the Middle East or something like that.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, final point. I don't find Christian nationalism to be the greatest evil in the universe at some time here, because Marva and I were Latinos, we're from Latin America,
You are.
and there is, yeah, and you are
Of course I am.
Hablamos español.
Sí,
If you
hablo
were,
español.
if you were in the Iberian Peninsula during the Reconquista,
Mhm.
if you talk with the average Spanish soldier who was fighting to liberate their land from Muslim occupation,
Uh-huh.
he will sound like a Christian nationalist, because we have to fight and defeat the heretics, followers of the false prophet Muhammad, to free this Christian land and to free our Christian brothers who are oppressed, so that Christ can be the king on Iberia in Spain. He will sound like a Christian nationalist. We're going to say, oh, you don't understand the gospel. Okay, but if it wasn't because he was fighting for his faith and for his land, as it happened in the Balkans, as it happened in Austria during the Ottoman incursion into Europe, Europe will be Muslim. So you are going to like, oh, that's a denial of the, yeah, maybe. But the thing is that the reason why the Americas are Christian mostly, it's because a lot of Christians in Europe were fighting for their countries so their countries can remain Christians. They were Christian nationalists in that sense. And we are here because of them. So I'm not really ungrateful for what they did, even though you could say that their theology was not really based on the text. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Zach, as you can see, this is Matias' hobby horse.
Yeah. Well, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I really do like looking at politics from like a psychological perspective. I read one book, and it was like talking about how people never want to change their mind. So like when they went to Iraq, they would come up with one reason to say, hey, we should go over there. And then it would be debunked. And then they're like, well, we have to go for this reason too. And then it's like, well, that's a bad reason too. And then it's like, well, the reason we went is this reason. And like it happened so many times. And like people like George Bush and other politicians, not even just Republicans, but from all stripes, would just like say one thing and just not change their mind, no matter how much evidence is against their initial thing. But so like the whole point of the book was like, yeah, so humans just don't like to change their minds. But it was really interesting how clear that was from a political perspective.
I can only add to that the worst thing we can do as a religious people is to weaponize the Bible.
Yeah.
Don't weaponize the Bible against others.
Hmm.
Let's move on here. So, Zach, concrete question to you: who are or have been your heroes in biblical scholarship?
Yeah, so big hero. You got John Walton, definitely the
Okay,
big hero.
I can get enough
Um,
of that.
I it's funny because like I find myself disagreeing with a lot of what he says these days. There was a time when Michael Heiser, I would agree like almost everything. And I've always said that anything that anything that he says that I would disagree with, I would still think that he had a really good reason to think that. So like there was very few things where he was just not thinking about it at all. There was a couple of
Yeah,
things.
sure.
But another a big one is Matthew Lynch. So he
Oh yeah,
wrote books on the flood and
like
he wrote on the
monotheism.
conquest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Matthew Lynch was one of the biggest because he's a pretty conservative guy, but he argued that the conquest narratives of Deuteronomy, where it talks about wiping everybody out, that was not historical in that the descriptions that were given of wiping it out, they're making a theological point, and that the text in Joshua where it says, oh, by the way, they didn't actually wipe these guys out, that those were the more historical related texts. And I was like, whoa, okay, so you could be conservative and see parts of the Bible as not historical, which is kind of like obvious because nobody thinks, well, most people don't think the parables are historical. But that really
Mhm.
started changing my view on a lot of stuff because it's like, okay, well, how do we understand the topic of Adam if this part isn't historical, or the flood or the Exodus, and like how do we view theology? But as I said before, like he's a pretty conservative guy. Like he was arguing like why we can still trust the Bible and say that it's not historical. So like that's really interesting way to look at things. Um, so that was a big one for me. Um, I like Pete Enns. But
Yeah.
um, so like he opened the ideas for me, but at the same time, like there's so many views of his where I'm like, okay, you could make a much stronger argument, or that's not a good argument. Like I agree with you on your main point. I just don't like how you got there. like like on inspiration or Romans 5, I went in my interview with him. I was like, okay, so how do you understand? How can you say that Adam died in the Genesis text, and that's what Paul thinks, but not say that Adam died? And he was just like, or how did it not cause sin to everybody? And he's like, I just don't think that. I'm like, okay, what's the reason? He's like, I just don't think that. I'm like, you're not even giving me a reason for what you're saying. So maybe I'll just wonder forever what his like reasoning was. So yeah, I want to give it actual evidence for why I believe things. And I kind of agree with his conclusion there on a couple of those things, but at the same time, like I didn't agree with his how he got there. Um, but yeah, I like Pete Enns a lot just for opening new ideas. I like people that like get you to think, even if maybe they're not like totally worth. Joel Koretko, I like him a lot. He's a good friend of mine. Because he is not a big fan of the documentary hypothesis, but he's a really like he sees that there's evidence for a priestly layer. So that really got me thinking, and but also he used to be a Calvinist, and like he has like really good arguments against Calvinism, I think. And so like I'll tell you what though, we're like anytime I've ever challenged him on something, he's almost always been right, like 99.9% of the time. So like I'll be like, okay, but what about this? I'm right this time, and he's like, no, not because of this. And I'm like, oh, you got me. like every,
Yeah.
so yeah, you guys should get some scholar friends just like to hang out with. It's fun.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we all may have our own heroes. I mean, Heiser was especially for me. But I mean, I'm not. I have no idealistic view of him. I mean, he was a human being. He might be wrong on many things.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, but if there is one thing we should be thankful is because he decided to not stay in the ivory tower, as he used to say,
Yeah.
and just come down here with the wider public people at the pew, as he used to say. But I agree with that. Zach, this is the last question. Again, thank you for being here. It's a long streaming.
Yeah.
Based on your experience and context, in what areas do you think the church has failed, thus impacting so negatively the lives of its members?
Yeah, I definitely think that one of the big ways it's failed is it, and I don't have an easy way to solve this, but I think one of the biggest ways it failed is that the whole setup of church is you have like the main pastor, and that's chosen by the congregation. Like it's kind of chosen by the elders, but the elders usually already agree with the congregation. So in other words, if the congregation who is not educated is wrong about something, then they are going to choose a pastor that doesn't know what he's talking about, because they're going to choose someone that agrees with them. So what ends up happening is that the pastor is either already agrees, or if he changes his mind, then he's going to get kicked out of the church if he doesn't, or like say things that already agree with the audience says. Like if you start questioning the Trinity, you're going to get kicked out of the church. If you question inspiration, if you question hell, and like there's so many times where people have been kicked out for the dumbest reasons. So how has it failed? Like I don't have a solution to it, but it's failed as far as just because the entire structure, at least of modern evangelicalism, is really rough. It's like pretty terrible. The like on an education perspective is an obvious one, and that's part of it, is because like you have this idea that scholars are bad guys, so we're not going to get a scholar as a pastor, and but it's like, okay, who chose that? The people that are biased against scholars. So like they're never having the opportunity to actually talk to any scholars, which is which you guys deal with in your countries, as have you told me, that it's just like a lot of anti-intellectualism.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a long list of problems in the church, I'd say, but that would be a few of them.
Yeah, it's the evangelical church it has a lot of problems in his foundation. At the same time, I'm kind of like very sympathetic because for example, as I mentioned in the beginning, Pentecostal evangelicalism has been a very positive force in the lower classes in Latin America. Ironically, because of its legalism, because it's actually helped people. Like, if you are a drunkard, if you drink, you are not part of this congregation. And that's why the drunkard wife beater start going to the church, and he doesn't drink anymore. He doesn't spend all the money. He doesn't beat his wife, so there is enough money for his kids to go to college. So we can criticize rightly evangelicalism for many of their sins. And at the same time, it won't be so hard because they have done a lot of good things in many contexts. And
sure,
yes, and also the alternatives. Sometimes the alternatives are not better unless they go to another kind of Christian tradition that doesn't have those defects, because very Christian tradition, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. So yeah.
I can only say to that is that the church needs to be put in check. It's good to have a critical view on religion because it is normally managed, supervised, led by human beings. Oh, Marv, really? Yeah, really. So, and we human beings, we are corruptible. We are prone to do bad things, to hurt people. And it just so happens that religion, to be that medium for humanity has done a lot of danger, done a lot of harm to people. So, being critical of religion doesn't mean that you are not a non-believer. I mean, I'm a critical of religion, but I believe. I still believe, and I hope I can continue believing. And I'm pretty sure you both two are the same. But uh, I personally, I'm not attending any church to this point. Uh, but that doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention what's going on. I mean, I that's my upbringing. It's most of my life in church.
Oh.
But the way, because that really matters to me, to my heart. That's why actually that's one of the reasons why we do this, what we do, just so you know. So the church continues to be this organism, that require much attention, scrutiny, and critical assessment. That was true in the days of Paul and Jesus and continues to be true to this very day. Okay. Now, I got some final comments here from our capybara. Churches call Moses for some advice. He occasionally appears on Zach's channel. Oh, there you go. That's good. That's good.
I don't know what you're
Zach.
talking about.
No, me neither. Zach, final comments.
But yeah, it was fun. If nobody's watching this long except for, I guess, your nonchalant capybara. So good job there. But
Yeah.
thank you guys for having me on. It's been fun to have a little conversation about this. And if you're listening, you're part of my audience. You should check out and watch and subscribe to this channel because there's a lot of really good content, a lot of good scholars that are on there.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Matias, before leaving, what do you have to say?
Yeah, and subscribe to Zach's channel because he has a lot of very, very good content.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Zach, as you can see, Matias has a lot to say about politics. He loves that veil.
I'll allow it.
Because now, I mean, you got what your pastor didn't tell you. Also, you got what your priest didn't tell you. And maybe, just maybe, what your political didn't tell you. And then you could have Matthias on there. Okay, thank you for being here. Thank you, people who's gonna be watching this. Thank you. And yes, it's been a while since last we put something out there. A lot of things have changed personally, so I being out a little bit. So please give us grace on that. Beyond that, with Zach here and Matias and myself, it will be until the next time. Keep searching until
See you guys.
Bye bye now.